I have a line of dialogue for you. People are always going to want to see movies, Ma, not just on TV or in the theaters.
Sounds
Which
familiar.
I love. So that's a line from your movie, White Irish Drinkers, and love the film. The young protagonist, Brian, is his name? Okay. He's trying to convince his working class mom, Karen Allen, in the film, that entertainment is important.
It's true. And it's also a poignant callback to the idea that we all know movie theaters are not going to be the only place to see movies, and people are not always going to want to go to movie theaters to see movies. And so it's a more idealized time, and the film is set in 1975. And I always find it kind of poignant to see a character's hopes and dreams from the point of view of the future, where we know this isn't going to happen. And there's another moment in the film where his girlfriend, Nora, is talking about her dreams of being a travel agent, because she's going to get to travel the world. And she says to Brian, people are always going to want to travel, and they're always going to need a travel agent to do it for them. And of course, we know that's nonsense now. It's like, Expedia, hello. And so there's something to me poignant about that, and with our knowledge, armed with our knowledge now, that what the world is versus what it was.
And I love too that he felt like he had to hide his paintings, and not that they were of anything bad, or that he just wasn't very upfront about them.
Right.
And
well, it's a cultural thing too, and it comes from the experience I had growing up, where wanting to be a filmmaker, you might as well say, I want to be an astronaut. I mean, they probably think it's more realistic for you to be an astronaut than a filmmaker. A lot of times there was really no value placed on it. What is that? What do you want? It was a pipe dream. Yeah, everyone wants to be that. So I would be embarrassed to admit to people what I want to do, because I'd be made fun of. And I made films as a kid. I made Super 8 films. I enlisted my friends to help me make them. But it was always frustrating because beyond a certain point, the enthusiasm would wane from my friends, because it's hard work. Even making a little Super 8 movie, it takes hours. It's hard work. And now, listen, we want to go play ball, man. And so it was always difficult to find people with my level of passion to work as hard as I want to do to make these movies. And so just in the neighborhood, it just wasn't something that, I remember I had a summer job once in the parks department. And it was a ridiculous job. They didn't really need any help there, but they were trying to, it was a program for underprivileged kids to go and work in the summer. And so I worked with these park department guys who were just these dems and those kind of guys, and he said to me, one of them said, "So kid, what do you do with yourself in your spare time? What do you do?" I said, "Well, I make movies." "Oh, movies, what kind of movies? Yeah, can I be in them?" And so that was sort of the level that you were dealing with. So it just became easier to be quiet about it and not. And much easier for someone like Brian, because he doesn't need help. He can just paint by himself. And the idea that this is always something that's moved me all the time. Just the idea that someone suspects they may have a talent for something. They suspect that it could be big, and that it, not necessarily big in terms of fame or fortune, but big in terms of it can take me out of the life I'm in and put me in a different life. And I'm always, every time I read a story about somebody who's, who came from terrible circumstances, and because of their art, got out of it and became a different person. Like, for instance, my father. I love my father very much. And my mother and he broke up when I was very young, my brother and I. And I would see him on the weekends, and he was just a real original character, tough iron worker. And it turned out, I found out later, that he had an incredibly high IQ. And when he served in World War II, he took an aptitude test, I suppose. And they gave him an anti-aircraft gunner job, which apparently was that era's version of like a high-tech job, because he was so smart. And he got out of the Army, and he went back to work in construction, and that's what he did. And I always would think to myself, I get lost in these thoughts about, like, what if there had been a different circumstance for him, a different opportunity, if he had gone to college, if he had read more, if I don't know what. And not to be elitist about it either, because I'm not saying there's anything wrong with his life. He loved being an iron worker. He was very good at it. But, it just always made me think about this whole nurture versus nature issue. And had he been born in different circumstances, would he be a doctor? Would he be a philosopher? Would he be, same guy, but different. So that kind of thing always moves me, and I think about it all the time. And that character was very real for me because that's, he's afraid to leave his neighborhood because it's safe and he understands it. It's the world he knows and he's comfortable in. And outside the neighborhood is all things that are terrifying to him. And so his friend's going off to college, wants him to come with him because his friend is smart enough to know Brian has talent and he has to get out of this, and he has to get away from his father in the movie. Brian's afraid to do it. So can he find the courage to bet on his talent? And will that work? And so that's really this character's dilemma and what he has to try to struggle with. And that moment is my favorite in the movie where his mother is angry at him because she doesn't know why he's in that basement. What's he doing in that basement? You doing drugs down there? I'm going to kill you if you're doing drugs down there. No, I'm not doing drugs, Ma. And the brother gets arrested and mother's upset and she has to go tell Brian, get your father out of the bar and tell him your brother's been arrested. And she calls him, he doesn't answer. Son of a bitch, he's in that basement. And she tears down the stairs and she comes face to face with these paintings that she's never seen. And it's something about him that she's never known or suspected. And so I just get emotional even thinking about it because it was so well performed by the actors. And so those are the key moments for me. That's a life-changing moment for her because suddenly she's faced with this absolute evidence that this kid is talented in a way that they can't even fathom. They have no idea what to even do with this. So anyway, that's really why I felt just so strong about that character. I think it's a universal thing with that character. So many people feel that they have to hide their talent or hide who they are because it may not be approved of, or they may not succeed at it. And so, I always dream of someday of making a sequel to that movie and, see where they all ended up. But anyway, that's White Irish Drinkers.
And what I love too is so much of it is the fight against staying in the neighborhood and getting the safe job versus I got to get out of here. I can't end up like my parents, or I can't end up, I know my fate if I stay here.
Yes. And there's a fear. Some people just naturally fearless. Like Todd, the character Todd, who's going to go to college. He's going to go off to Pennsylvania. And he's not worried about leaving the neighborhood, or he can't wait for new things. But for a lot of people like Brian, and I have to admit it was, I had to fight it myself. There's a fear about, am I a fraud? Can I make it outside my comfort zone? And it's really difficult to take that step. As a kid, I could fantasize about being a Hollywood director, and I'm going to make movies, and I'm going to have this life, and I'm going to express myself. But then when the reality of that comes, yes, okay, but you can't do that in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. You've got to do that here or there. And you have to travel. You have to be there for months to do it. And, in a place that you've never been before. And so for a lot of people, that's great. What's the problem? But for people who have more of a parochial, kind of, existence, you grew up in these small neighborhoods where, people in a neighborhood who barely went to Manhattan. It was like a big drudgery. Oh, shit, I got to go into the city today. And so the fear is becoming like that, for people like me. And Brian, who ultimately realizes he can't stay. He can't protect his mother. He can't stay for that. He's got to go.
Right, and it's interesting, too, about the forces that try to hold you back.
Right.
They don't want to see you leave. Maybe they don't want you to go. Exactly. Or, who do you think you are,
Right. You're better than me. What are you, better than me? And because it makes them ask questions about themselves that they don't want to think about, never mind answer. And that is true. There are a lot of, and it's not only generational. It's within a group of friends that people might don't you're a traitor. You leave your neighborhood. Turn your back. You turn your back on us, your friends. Well, what's the matter? There's a lot of heavy guilt, and it's all about I don't want to make the same decision. You can't be braver than me.